Good morning. How are you? I hope you all accelerated your C work of geography second and third lessons, as well as third lesson in political science. Whenever you have time, you better write down C works of those three lessons. By that, we can complete more. C work of more number of lessons during this vacation. At the same time, whether do you have social science class or not, you have to read at least three questions per a day. By that, you can complete the learning process within 1 week. And after completion of this lesson, again, slip test will be conducted on the sectors of Indian economy, like how we conducted slip test on federalism. Then come to the lesson. Before going to the new concept within this lesson, I have to recapitulate what we discussed in the previous class. In previous class, we discussed about the problem of unemployment in India, especially how it is a challenge to the economy. So, and moreover, we learned the difference of unemployment, difference between open unemployment and underemployment or disguised unemployment. So, open unemployment is nothing but it is a situation where people are ready to undergo the work at prevailing wage rates in the market, but they could not find the job. That situation, that phenomena, what we call it as a unemployment. It is clearly visible. People are ready to work, but they could not find the work. That situation, what we call it as a unemployment. Here, we can notice that particular person is not working. But underemployment or disguised unemployment, people are apparently working, but they are working less than their full potential. People are apparently working, but they are working less than their full potential. That means they seems to be worker, but they are working less than their full potential. So it is a big problem. And disguised, it is also known as a disguised unemployment. Disguised is nothing but it is in another form which you cannot identify. It is in hidden form. That's why it is a big challenge to the economy. To understand this disguised unemployment, we learned some case study. In our textbook they gave case study of Lakshmi. So Lakshmi, the family which consists of 5 members, and these 5 members depend on 2 hectares of land. Lakshmi family has 2 hectares of land which is unirrigated land. That means it completely depend on rainfalls, monsoons. So these 5 members cultivate the crops and they are getting employment opportunity from the 2 acres of their own land. But number of working days are very less. It's depend upon agricultural season. So generally agricultural people, labor who depend on agriculture may have work in very less number of days, especially during the time of sowing, weeding, application of manuring, as well as fertilizers, pesticides, and harvesting season. These are all during these seasons, people may get employment opportunity in rural areas or especially people who engage in agriculture. That's why number of working days are very less. What about the remaining days? They simply idle without doing any work. That's why most of the people who are engaged in agriculture comes under underemployment or disguised unemployment. So that's why only 49% of people who depend on agriculture, but they are contributing only 12% to the Indian GDP. That is a big problem in our country. So how can we overcome this unemployment problem in our country? How to create more employment opportunities in our country? So let us take the same case of Lakshmi. Here, what is the big problem to the Lakshmi? So the land is unirrigated land. If a government provide irrigation facility, how the government can provide irrigation facility? Simply by constructing projects or dams. If government provide irrigation facility to the farmer of Lakshmi, either Lakshmi or other farmers, naturally they may produce more, they may produce two or more crops, which create employment opportunity within that family. So in this way we can generate more employment opportunities in rural areas by increasing irrigation facility. So irrigation is not only a problem to that family. So not all, it is only case study, it is applicable to majority of small and marginal farmers in our country. So 80% of farmers in India are small or marginal farmers, small farmers. So these people also require capital. So these people mostly depend on informal source of credit. That means that these people has to pay higher interest rate to the money lenders, friends or relatives. So these are all the challenges. If government provide loans at reasonable interest rate, that means in the form of formal source of credit, again farmer may get their investment within the time, and they can buy seeds, fertilizers, pesticides and all. By that they can cultivate the crop in a better way and they get better yielding. And along this, if we encourage the agro-based industries in rural areas, which also can provide employment opportunities, and government should provide at least the basic infrastructural facilities in rural areas, again which brought some sort of investments to the rural areas which provide employment opportunities. So in this way we can generate some sort of employment opportunities in rural areas by attracting investments, encouraging small scale industries in rural areas, especially agro-based industries, and then by providing basic infrastructural facilities. And come to the urban areas, it is somehow peculiar when compared to rural areas. In urban areas also, government should provide at least basic infrastructural facilities, and government should address the problem of educated unemployed who are more in urban areas, and government should take necessary steps to attract foreign investments to start the industries or service sector activities. So and government must come with skill development centers which brighten the employment opportunities to the educated youth. So in this way we have to provide more employment opportunities in urban areas. By that we can overcome the unemployment problem in our country. So come to another classification of people who are working. So based on their employment conditions, that is organized as well as unorganized sector employees. So come to organized sector employees. So this organized sector, to understand the organized sector as well as unorganized sector in a better way. So here example is given, see once, the case of Kanta. So Kanta works in an office. She attends her office from 9:30 to 5:30. So limited time. She gets her salary regularly at the end of every month. In addition to salary, she also gets provident fund as per the rules laid down by the government. She also gets medical and other allowances. Kanta does not go to office on Sundays. That means this is a paid holiday. When she joined work, she was given an appointment letter stating all the terms of conditions of work. So this is all about the case of Kanta. See another case, Kamal. Kamal is a Kanta's neighbor. Kanta's neighbor. He is a daily wage laborer in a nearby grocery shop. He goes to the shop at 7:30 in the morning and works till 8 p.m. That means almost more than 12 hours a day. he gets no other allowances apart from his wages. He is not paid for the days he does not work. He has therefore no leave or paid holidays like Kanta, and nor was he given any formal letter saying that he has been employed in the shop. He can be asked he can be asked leave and all. It is the wish of employee. He can be asked to leave any time by his employer. That means his employment is completely depend on the wish of employer. So that means there is no job security. So in this way, based on the working conditions of a worker, we classified this employment pattern into two: organized sector and unorganized sector. So come to the organized sector. So in organized sector, generally these organized sector are large scale industries, and these provide some regular employment opportunity and assured work and job security is there. These kind of enterprises are registered by the government and have to follow its rules and regulations, like Factories Act, Minimum Wages Act, as well as Payment of Gratuity Act, as well as the Shops Establishment Act, etc. All these acts should be followed by organized sector. That's why here the people who are working in organized sector have some sort of benefits in the form of job security, paid holidays, as well as provident fund. Provident fund is nothing but, so based on it, their basic salary, generally salary which includes basic salary, TA, that means traveling allowance, DA, dearness allowance, HRA, house rent allowance. In this way, the salary is divided under different allowances and all. Based on basic salary, 12% of salary should be deposited from the employee side, and 12.5% should be paid by employer on the provident fund account of employee. So in this way, this amount will be given to the employee at the time of his retirement. That means these people may get some lump sum amount when they are retiring from their job. And out of this total amount, again 1/3 is deposited in his pension account. So after retirement of such people, these people may get some lump sum amount, as well as after retirement they may get monthly pension also. So in this way, these people have job security. They can't remove the person from the job without proper reason and all. In that way, job security is there. After retirement, again benefits are there, and gratuity at the time of retirement. So whatever the service rendered by a particular person in that institution, they may get at least 1 month salary for service of 1 year. Suppose a person who works 30 years, he may get 30 months salary at a time in the form of gratuity. So these are all the benefits. Paid holidays are there. So these are all the benefits which are enjoyed by the people who are working in an organized sector. So when come to the unorganized sector, so it is quite contrast to the people who are working in unorganized sector. So people who are working in unorganized sector, so they have no job security. At the time of their joining, they won't get any sort of appointment letter, and no paid holidays, no provident fund or gratuity facilities. So when our owner wanted to remove from his service, simply they can remove as per their wish. That means the employee work under whims and wish of the employer. So there is no job security. A person who works more than the prescribed hours, he won't get any OT, that means overtime payment. If an employee in organized sector, he works more than the 8 hours, he may get overtime payment, but we can't find such kind of facility in an organized sector. So in this way there are no paid holidays, so whatever the days they work they may get wages for those particular days. So majority of the people in India fall under unorganized sector. Out of total people who are worked in either primary, secondary or service sectors, 92% of people who comes under unorganized sector. Only 8% of people who are working under organized sector. So, and the familiar question whenever I teach this lesson to the students, most of the students ask that, sir, you comes under which sector, whether organized sector or unorganized sector? So my simple answer is I have been teaching community within private sector comes under semi-organized. Of course, which is not categorized in our textbook. They gave only organized or unorganized. Semi-organized in the sense some sort of benefits as well as allowances and all are there to private employees in different institutions, but they won't follow strict all kinds of rules and regulations like the people who are working in organized. So the true organized sector employees are generally government employees, comes under 100% organized. So these people get all kinds of benefits, and very big institutions, some big institutions also run like a organized. So that's why only 8% of people who are working in organized sector in our country, 92% of people who are working in unorganized sector. One more surprising fact is that, so these 8% of organized sector people are contributing 50% of our country's GDP. At the same time, 92% of people who are working in unorganized sector is contributing 50% to the GDP. That means 50% of GDP is sharing by 8% of people who are working in organized sector, whereas 92% of people who are working in unorganized sector shares the remaining 50% of total GDP. That's why this is a problem. And then how can we protect these people, especially who are working in unorganized sector? So government should implement its laws strictly. So by that we can protect the people who are working in unorganized sector. So that means government should made mandatory to provide provident fund facility, remaining all the facilities in small workshops or who are working under in shops and all. So by that we can give some sort of job security to the people who are working in an organized sector, and we have to encourage the institutions with huge investments to turn as a organized sector, and we have to strengthen the government sector. By that we can increase the number of employment opportunities in our organized sector. But unfortunately nowadays in India or in all other parts of the world are going towards the private sector, and many government enterprises are becoming sick. So that's why we are going for encouraging private sector. As per 1919, since 1990s, a new economic policy was made in our country. As per it, Indian government decided to encourage privatization, and we have to invite globalization as well as liberalization, that what popularly known as LPG, liberalization, privatization as well as globalization. This concept we will learn in the fourth lesson of economics, that is globalization lesson, in a thorough manner. So because of these conditions also, the number of people who working in unorganized sector increases, and moreover nowadays even multinational companies are also demanding to give flexibilities in labor laws. That means they are not ready to provide all sorts of security who they recruit to work in their institutions. So that means these people also comes under unorganized sector. So they may accommodate these people based on seasonality of work and all. So in India, majority of the people are working in unorganized sector, especially comes agriculture. All the people who are working in agriculture comes under uh, unorganized sector, as well as agricultural laborers, small and marginal farmers, sharecroppers, artisans. These are all comes under unorganized sector. Who are sharecroppers? Sharecropper is nothing but a person who cultivate the land by taking land from the owner on rent basis. That means the output will be shared between a tenant and the owner of the land. These people we call them as a sharecroppers. So all kinds of these people comes under unorganized. Nearly 80% of rural households in India are small and marginal farmer category. These are all comes under unorganized sector only. So that's why government must take necessary steps to protect the interest of people who are working in unorganized sector. So otherwise people won't that means there is no job security to these people, and these people may get very less income. People who are working in an organized sector like rickshaw pullers as well as painters and small people who are working in shops, as well as so petty business people, these are all comes under unorganized sector. So the people who are more are working in unorganized sector is not a good sign for the economy. So when compared to the developed economies and all, it accommodate more employment opportunities in organized sector when compared to unorganized sector. That's why so government should take necessary steps to overcome this problem, and that means we have to create more employment opportunities in organized sector. This is all about organized sector as well as unorganized sector. So one more classification is based on ownership. We can classify the sectors into two: public as well as private sector. Public sector is nothing but that particular enterprises or industry established and run by government. Then these are all come under public sector. So if the industry or particular enterprises established and run by private people, which comes under private sector. So examples of government sector we can find many: railways, Indian railways, as well as postal employees, employees in LIC, as well as employees in different government enterprises, BHEL, as well as different Hindustan Petroleum. Different government enterprises are there. The people who are working under this comes under public sector employees. So other companies comes under TISCO, that means Tata and Iron Steel Company Limited, as well as Reliance or many other industries. These are all comes under private sector industries. So here again we find some sort of difference between public sector as well as private sector. Already earlier, we learned that the people who are working under public sector comes under organized sector. That means these people have job security, paid holidays, whatever we discussed, these people all enjoy by the people who are working under government sector. So because the basic objective of government sector is of course naturally whatever the institution, whether it is private or public, it may work for profit. But government enterprises, the main motto is not only the profit. It may works for profit, at the same time it may look after the welfare of its employees, as well as whatever it gets benefit, again it will give it back to the people in different forms. So that's why public sector is good regarding employment as well as it is good for the people. So that means more and more public sector industries or enterprises are there in the economy, which is good because we can accommodate more people into organized sector, as well as they have job security, more salaries, benefits and all. So which helps for the again development of the economy and all. But whereas private sector industries, so generally in private sector industries, job security is absolutely less, competition is more. Of course, here in private sector also nowadays, because of the worthy people are getting more and more salaries, incentives, benefits, and all. But competition is more, job security is not there, as well as the employee works under the whims of employer. So these are all the problems in private sector. So unfortunately nowadays most of the public sector enterprises are getting huge losses, because employees who are working in public sector, the initially, even though they are responsible, when once the people who get the job, these people are not that much enthusiastic in their work. At the same time, some of the times government also fail to change their policies time to time, and lack of less competitive spirit uh, as far as private sector is concerned. So because of all these things, government sector industries are, many industries are becoming sick. Of course, still some of the government enterprises are earning good profits, and they are helping the economy, boost up the economy and all, like Navaratna companies and all. But on the whole, due to this privatization policy, LPG, that what we discussed in 1990, slowly central government as well as state governments are disinvest their money in public sector. That means public sector enterprises are also, we are welcoming the private people to come and invest their money in government enterprises. That means it comes under joint sector, public as well as private, both may run the institution. Slowly government is disinvest their money in public sector industries. By that, private industry, I mean public industry, may converts into private industries. So this is the phenomena, or the case which is going on in our country at present. So that's why there is a need to increase the government sector. The key sectors must be in the hands of government. Suppose best example we can discuss, we always talk about US because it is the largest economy in the world. But if you considered the case of Corona, so it is one of the most affected country in the world, more number of cases, as well as here the health is also mostly in private sector. There, that is the, that we find the difference between India and US. In India, both government sector as well as private sector are working in health. But whereas in US, mostly health comes under private sector. That's why it became a complex task to the US government to provide health facilities to all the people who are living in US. So that is why government should maintain and operate at least key industries, like key things like defense, health, education and all. Otherwise it is not, especially countries like India, because India is a developing country and with huge population. So last year we learnt about food security lesson. There we learnt that government gives some fair price to the farmer to procure the food grains from them. That what we call it as a MSP, minimum support price. Government pay at least minimum support price to the farmer to procure food grains from the farmers. At the same time, these food grains are stored in FCI, Food Corporation of India, godowns of Food Corporation of India, and these are again distributed to the needy people, especially poor people, at subsidy price. That what we call it as a PDS, public distribution system. We can better say in ration shops. So government is on one hand procuring food grains by paying minimum support price to the farmers, and at the same time they are giving these food grains to the poor people at nominal cost. That means subsidy is bearing by the government. So countries like India, it is essential because still many people, especially in children, are malnutritioned. So almost one fourth of the people who are facing a problem of malnutrition. So especially infant mortality rate. In previous lesson also we discussed about infant mortality rates. That means the children who die before 1 year of age. So we considered 1,000 live births who die before before 1 year is considered as an infant mortality rate. So infant mortality rate is high in India, especially infant mortality rate in Odisha 45, as well as in Madhya Pradesh 47 is higher than some of the poorest regions of the world, that means African countries. That's why there is a need of the government to look after the food, that means maintaining PDS system and all. Otherwise, we can't provide at least sufficient food to the people who are under poverty line. So that's why government is taking up all these necessary steps and all. I hope today we discussed about classification of sectors into organized and unorganized based on its nature of employment. Based on nature on employment, we categorized into two: organized sector as well as unorganized sector. So organized sector is nothing but these enterprises or industries which are established as per the rules and regulations of the government, and it follow the rules and regulations which are stipulated by the government, and it obey the laws like Factories Act, as well as Establishments of Shops Act, as well as Gratuity Payment of Gratuity Act, Minimum Wages Act and all. Because of all these things, the people who are working in organized sector, these people have job security and they enjoy paid holidays, and they have the facilities like provident fund, gratuity, and many other facilities are enjoying by the people who are working in organized sector, and their timing of the job is also limited. If the people they may work more than that prescribed time, and they may get even overtime payment also. In contrast, people who works under unorganized sector, these small and scatter units, they generally, even though rules and regulations are there for these small industries and all, generally they won't follow the rules and regulations. So people who works under unorganized sector, they won't get any they have no job security, and these people won't get any paid holidays as well as facilities like provident fund, gratuity, etc. And these people are forced to work for a longer hours for very less wages. The problem in India is 92% of people who works in organized sector, whereas only 92% of people who works on unorganized sector, only 8% of people who are working in organized sector. So these 8% of workers in organized sector are contributing 50% to Indian GDP. Remaining 92% of workers who are working in unorganized sector also contributing only 50% to the GDP. That's why it is a big problem in our country. So how can we protect the people in organized sector also we discussed. So government should encourage the industries which comes under organized sector. Government itself should increase and more employment opportunities by investing its money. So government sector enterprises should increase, but real situation is somehow different. So this nowadays, due to 1990s, due to privatization as well as globalization policies and all, the employment in private sector is increasing, employment in government sector is somehow decreasing. So all small and marginal farmers, 80% of rural farmers comes under small and marginal farmers. These are all comes under unorganized sector, as well as small workers, as well as painters, street vendors. These are all comes under unorganized sector only. They are earning very less income. And based on its ownership, again we classified the industries into two. Those are uh, government sector industries as well as a private sector. That means public industries as well as a private sector industries. Public sector industries are nothing but industries which are established and run by government. Here the main motive is welfare of its workers as well as welfare of the people. Profit maximization is not its primary objective, whereas private institutions, the primary objective is to earn profit, to maximize the profit. That's why we find the difference between public sector as well as a private sector. So to improve the employment conditions in India, so we have to encourage public sector industries. By that we can increase the number of people who may work in organized sector. So this is all about the lesson, last concept of the lesson. Come to these worksheets and all once. So exercise here, some sort of blanks are given. You read once. Before filling all these things, simply you read the textbook once and twice thoroughly, and you try to fill all these things. Anyhow, I send answers to all these questions in the form of worksheets. If notes. If you have any doubts, you go through that notes. So you have to go through these objectives once. You can fill easily and come to question number 6 onwards. So different kinds are questions are given. Do you think the classification of economic activities into primary, secondary and tertiary is useful? Explain how. Obvious answer is yes, because if we classify into these three sectors, so then only we can analyze in a better way how many people who are working in primary, who are working in secondary, who are working in tertiary, as well as how these people are, what conditions are there in primary sector, secondary sector, as well as tertiary sector and all. So that's why our obvious answer is yes, correct only. And then how is the tertiary sector different from other sectors? So tertiary sector already we discussed in the lesson that primary and secondary sector produces goods. In primary sector it's depend upon nature, but whereas in secondary sector they may produce goods with the help of tools and machines, but whereas service sector it won't produce any goods, simply it render its services. That is the basic difference between primary, secondary when compared to service sector and all. And how is the tertiary, what do you understand by disguised unemployment? Explain with example each from the urban as well as rural. Already we discussed about definition. The people who are working, people are apparently working, but they are working less than their full potential is comes under disguised unemployment. Example, you can take a farmer's Lakshmi case. In urban areas, casual workers, painters, small petty workers, these are all comes under rural urban areas. You can take the example. Distinguish between open unemployment and disguised unemployment. Open unemployment is nothing but people are ready to undertake the work at prevailing wage rates in the market, but they could not find the job. That phenomena or situation, what we call it as a open unemployment, it is clearly visible. We can find a particular person whether he is employee or unemployee. But disguised unemployment, people are apparently working, but they are working less than their full potential. That situation, what we call it as a disguised unemployment. You can give examples. This disguised unemployment, which is seen in all three sectors, but most predominant in primary sector. Tertiary sector is not playing any significant role in the development of Indian economy. Do you agree? No. Our obvious answer is no. Because already we discussed that it is contributing 68% to the Indian GDP. Service sector in India employs two different kinds of people who are there. So one people are technically skilled people who are working as managers, IT people, banking sector, and these people are getting more and more wages because these people are highly skilled as well as educated people. At the same time, within the service sector, many people who are working and who are getting very very less wages, like painters, as well as the casual labor, as well as electricians, plumbers. So these people are also comes under service sector, but whereas these people are earning very very less income. So workers are exploited in the unorganized sector. Do you agree with this view? Obvious answer is yes, because in our unorganized sector there is no job security and all, and that's why exploitation is there. How are the activities in economy classified on the basis of employment conditions? Simply organized as well as unorganized, and compare the employment conditions prevailing in organized and unorganized sector. That what already we thoroughly discussed in the lesson. Job security is there, not there. You write in a tabular form. Paid holidays are there, not there to the unorganized sector people. So in this way we can find the differences between organized as well as unorganized. Provident fund facility is there, is not there, like that. Explain the objective of implementing NREGA, that means National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005. We thoroughly discussed in the lesson. You go through once. With this act, central government is guaranteeing to the people to provide at least 100 days of work. Using the example from your area, compare and contrast the activities and functions of private and public sector. So we can find lot of differences and all. So give a few examples of public sector activities and explain why government has taken them up. Explain how public sector contributes to the economic development of the nation. That means importance of public sector, that what we discussed, education, health, defense, these are all comes under public sector. And then the workers in unorganized sector need protection on the following issues: wages, salaries and all, how you have to explain. And then some two problems are also given. You go through once, you can understand easily. Otherwise, the notes is given, you go through once. So this is all about the sectors of Indian economy. So you revise the lesson and better you take. I hope you all completed the question answers. You better complete the question answers as well as learn the concept thoroughly. Within 2-3 days, again I will plan to conduct slip test on the lesson, the sectors of Indian economy. Okay, thank you.